All right, well, thank you guys for coming tonight and welcome. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Lewis Creek Association, so I won't give you a long introduction, but my name's Kate Kelly and I'm the program manager at LCA. And okay, so I just wanted to share with you guys tonight some of the things that we've been working on at LCA and ways that we can sort of work together to improve water quality in our Lake Champlain that we all love and our watersheds, which really needs to be a sort of a group effort. Okay, so in the 2017 Clean Water Report, the treasurer showed that essentially the amount of money that Lake Champlain brings in due to its like clean water and sort of recreation is about 300 million per year. And the costs of sort of losing that or having to clean up the lake are about 115 million per year. So really a major issue for our lake when we have these things like cyanobacteria blooms that can cause major issues for property values, as well as, you know, folks not wanting to recreate in the lake. So, you know, as we all sort of know and have heard about for a while, Lake Champlain is in trouble, and we all have to kind of work together to improve Lake Champlain's water quality. What we do, or what I do on my property in Heinsberg, affects what goes on here in Charlotte, since you guys are downstream from us. So, you know, we all have to work together. It's not just Charlotte's problem because you guys are on the lake. It's also Heinsberg's problem because we're upstream from you, and we need to like do things in our town or on our properties to, you know, to improve the water as it runs down through Charlotte and into the lake. Okay, so one of the issues that that Lake Champlain has, one of the major issues that it has, is phosphorus. Phosphorus is a nutrient that feeds plant growth, and it can feed algal blooms in the lake, which can also, you know, affect cyanobacteria, which is the blue-green algae that you hear about. Phosphorus gets into the lake from a variety of sources. In this picture, you see a lot of sediment running down a stream out into Lake Champlain, and that sediment can actually have phosphorus bound to it, so sort of stuck onto the sediment as it's carried downstream. So sediment is a problem that can come from, you know, a variety of sources, including stream banks being eroded, you know, farm fields like washing off into the streams. Phosphorus can also come from fertilizers and other sources. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see essentially the amount of phosphorus that Vermont contributes to the Lake Champlain Basin per year, which is 631 metric tons. The majority of that coming from agricultural lands, so 262 metric tons per year. And on the right side of the screen, you'll see sort of the target, or how much we need to reduce our phosphorus by to meet our required sort of amounts that are dictated by EPA and DEC, also known as the TMDL, or total maximum daily load. So that we need to reduce that 631 metric tons per year down to about 417 metric tons per year. The greatest of that reduction needs to come from the agricultural sector. So one of the issues that we see is that sort of past management of our streams can contribute to erosion and flooding today. So on the left side of the screen is a photo of the La Platte River, sort of where this little yellow arrow is. You can see that the La Platte River here in Heinsberg has a natural sinuosity to it. It curves, it, you know, it travels around. You can see old oxbows next to the stream. On the right side of the stream is also the La Platte River in Heinsberg. This is at the intersection of 116 and the Charlotte Road. And you can see here, there is no natural sinuosity. This river has been straightened and essentially ditched and made to go in this straight line across Heinsberg. Obviously, this was done for, you know, reasons including farming and, being able to have as much land as possible for your hay or your cattle or whatever it was. But as we've learned, those straightened rivers make water go faster and sort of carry more sediment with them because because they have like more power as they're moving. As we all know, we have more frequent flooding these days, and I'm sorry about this little thing at the top. I don't know how to make this thing go away. So you can't really read my text, but flooding with climate change is just becoming more and more, it's happening more often, and those storms, those large storm events that we're getting are often larger than they used to be. Those frequent floods can also carry more sediment and carry more phosphorus and nutrients with them. So as I mentioned earlier, those solutions to our lakes pollution really need to occur throughout our watershed. I'm going to try to show you a quick video now. This was made by folks actually in Europe, but very applicable here. In this video, they're going to show you 3 sort of historic channel management ways that we dealt with water, and then 3 sort of fixes for that issue.
So you can slide it down to the bottom.
Oh,
but I don't know
okay. Okay.
No, this is a book.
Right. Oh, maybe there. Ha.
And then if you go up to the top, I think it will come up if you need it.
Okay. Super. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just go over those sort of 3 principles that we saw in the video briefly. So first is essentially moving buildings and other structures out of the flood zones to be able to reconnect the river with its floodplain. Second, we can slow the flow down by allowing those meanders to reform, especially in areas where the river's been straightened, and leaving those natural sediments in the stream beds to prevent down cutting and bank erosion. So here in Vermont, we have some updated state regulations and sort of good river management principles in place. These include things like our required agricultural practices and the 3-acre rule, if you've heard about that. We have a new some new rules coming into place. But there are also voluntary conservation measures, as you know, many of you in this room are aware of, things like river easements, allowing, you know, the river to move as it will, doing buffer plantings, those types of things that are not, you know, required by law. One of the things that Lewis Creek Association does is to monitor water quality in many of our local streams and rivers to try to pinpoint areas that are problematic. You know, if there's really high phosphorus or high nitrogen levels coming from a certain area, we might want to look at that area as a spot to do some of these voluntary measures, whether it's putting in a rain garden or a river corridor easement. So here in sort of our 3-town area of Shelburne, Charlotte, and Heinsberg, essentially the La Platte River, which is the main large river you see draining from Heinsberg all the way down to Shelburne Bay, as well as some of our smaller direct to lake drainages here in Charlotte, like Holmes Creek and Thorpe Brook and Kimball Brook. We've done water quality sampling there for many years, and this data compilation was done several years ago using about 10 years worth of water quality data at different sites that we sample. So the squares that you see on the map are the sites that we sample for water quality, or we have historically. And within each of those larger squares, there are 4 small colored squares. The one in the upper left corner is phosphorus. So you'll note that in pretty much every single one of those squares, the upper left square is red. That means we have poor phosphorus, or like high levels of phosphorus, in all of our sampling sites. The upper right is solids or sediments in the water. Lower right is E. coli, a type of bacteria. And lower left is chloride, which comes primarily from road salts. So you'll see, you know, varying levels of all those other things at the various sites. But again, just note that, you know, really high levels of phosphorus at pretty much all of our sampling sites here in this area. Here in Charlotte, we have some additional information through this map, which also shows things like our culverts and how compatible they are with the stream. So like, do they line up with the stream? Do they allow the fish and the little aquatic organisms to pass through that culvert to get upstream or downstream safely? And so you can go onto our website and look at all this information, either through a PDF, which is what this is, or through an interactive map that shows you, like, you know, specific locations. So you could go zoom into the culvert near your house and see, you know, how good it is at allowing aquatic organisms to pass through. You can also look at the stream channel stability. So like, is it moving around a lot? Is the stream bank like falling in, or is it fairly, you know, stable and in good condition? This same PDF also has a list of potential projects in each town, so including Charlotte. Again, some of this is a little bit outdated because it is sort of a stagnant document that was made several years ago. So some of it is not totally up to date, but like I said, you can also go onto our website at the library on our website and scroll down to this scorecard map. And in that map, you can go in and click around and turn on and off layers if there's something you're really interested in looking at, to sort of zoom in and check out the area near you. Okay, so moving on, one of our large projects recently has been this Ahead of the Storm, you know, program, I guess, if you will. One of our sites is here at the Charlotte Library. We have a rain garden outside that sort of helps demonstrate optimal conservation practices, ways that folks at home or other, you know, sites can help improve water management and improve water quality in the same way. And for all these sites, we try to apply the 3 S's: slow it, sink it, and spread it to water. So essentially you're trying to slow water down, spread it out. If it's channelized, you want to get it to spread, and you want to sink it into the ground so it's not just shooting off downstream. This site is here in Charlotte as well. This is East Thompson Point Road. And we did a series of essentially these rock berms, if you will, that slow water down before they reach Thorpe Brook, which is up at the sort of upper right corner of your screen. You can't really see it. And within each of these areas, it allows water to slow down and then kind of settle into those basins and drop sediment before it scurries on down to the stream. This site's in Heinsberg at the Heinsberg Town Garage. This originally was, this brook on the right was sort of constrained by some berms that were right up next to the river. There were town garage buildings essentially right on top of those berms, so very close to the river as well. So we were able to build a new town garage back further from the river where it belongs, and then do some excavation to lower the level of the land to allow that brook to then flood out onto a floodplain. So essentially creating a floodplain for the brook to spread out onto, and plant trees. As you can see in the picture, this is an old picture. It looks a lot nicer now. And we also put some logs and rocks in the brook. Some of those stones that you're seeing on the right that are like fairly large are stones that were placed in the brook to help sort of allow the you know, some of the smaller stuff to drop out and like essentially raise the level of the brook up so that it also is able to spread out onto the floodplain. And then again, sinking water into the ground. This is at Shelburne Community School in their sort of bus circle where they drop kids off. Used to just be like a mound of grass, and essentially we created a rain garden there so that water now from that bus circle, instead of just going into a storm grate and directly out to McCabe's Brook, which then drains into Shelburne Bay, now gets captured in this rain garden. The plants can kind of filter and take out some of the nutrients and clear the water a bit before it goes down into the storm grates. So as far as towns, I mean, there are several things that the towns can do, including increasing river setbacks, including river corridor language in your zoning regulations to really allow the rivers to move and to do what they need to do without causing property damage. We could upgrade our roads for larger storms. So again, this is that East Thompson's Point Road site. This is sort of looking the other way from the berms that you saw, the stone berms. So this roadside swale was essentially dug out to accommodate a 100-year storm event. So if it's, if we get that big storm, this swale is going to be able to carry that water successfully without like washing out the road or having other issues. Those are the things that are voluntary measures. They're not required by any permits or rules at the state level. The municipal roads general permit has some good design principles about like how we should design our roads, and all of our towns have to apply those principles to our town roads. So we're, all the towns are, you've probably seen like a lot of road work and ditch work and whatnot in your town. Those are required at the state level, but they only are applied to town roads. So they're not applied to our driveways or our private roads. So taking those principles and trying to apply them to, new driveways, new private roads in town, always a good idea. Because as you see, we have a lot of private roads. I'm sure that's 29% private. You can access some of our water quality data, that more up-to-date water quality data, on our website. We come out with a story map every year. Hopefully our new one will be released in the next week or two if I get around to finishing my work on it. And it essentially just shows you all the sites that we sampled in the past year and gives you sort of a visual idea of how much phosphorus was at those sites, how much nitrogen, like where are really high levels of chloride, And so incorporating that, you know, potentially into your town plan as well is useful. Some of you guys here in this room do a great job of this, protecting natural areas of high public value through easements and, you know, purchases. Addressing existing development in flood prone areas. You know, obviously, hopefully we don't have too many of these situations in Charlotte, but, you know, fixing these existing development problems in flood prone areas where we can is a very good goal. And then, of course, there are things we can do on our own properties as well. We want to keep our soil from eroding, so keep your soil on your property. If you see something like this, it's almost too late, so stop it before it gets to this point. Fix your driveways, as we talked about, so putting in a proper crown so that the water flows off the sides of the driveways and then into like a grass-lined swale or a rock-lined swale to help slow that water down and allow it to spread out before it, you know, erodes and causes problems. Here we are at the Charlotte Library, although it doesn't look like this today. It's under a foot of snow, but there is a rain garden out there and it will look beautiful again. So this rain garden here allows water that comes off the roofs of the library to spread out and to soak in before it rushes on down into the ditch or into the stream. Planting natives, you know, where you can, essentially a no-mow area is always useful. Also allowing your grass to grow longer, 3 inches or more, allows those plants to like take up more water so that they're, you know, they're able to successfully take water up more than a short lawn does. And of course, maintaining those wooded buffers along our waterways on our properties is really important as well. Couple other steps, and I'm not going to read these. You guys can all read quite well. And we'll move on to some of our new material, I think. So, okay, the little, I got to put in the little spiel, right? Support our work, and investing now in these preventive measures and fixing past mistakes will cost us less in the end. We have a lot of devoted volunteers who help with water quality sampling and other chores. So we're happy to have you join us in whatever way you're interested in. Your beautiful view here from the top of Mount Philo. Okay, so I just wanted to cover briefly some of the projects that came out of a recent grant that we had from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. This grant was really focused on the McCabe's Brook watershed, which begins here in Charlotte at the school, essentially near Pease Mountain, and then flows north through Shelburne and joins the La Platte River very near the mouth at Shelburne Bay. So on the map here, you can see the McCabe's Brook here, sort of running down the center of the map. On the right side is the La Platte River over here. And over here, you've got some of our smaller tributaries that drain directly to the lake. So the reasoning behind this project was that McCabe's Brook is impaired in its lower reaches. So it has really high levels of nutrients. It essentially doesn't support aquatic life properly. Some of that is possibly caused by the wastewater treatment plant in Shelburne, which drains directly into this fairly tiny brook. But there are other issues as well. Upstream of the wastewater plant is also impaired. There's a lot of sediment erosion, stream bank erosion, other issues that are happening downstream. And so we had some engineers, we hired engineers who looked at the entire, stretch of McCabe's Brook, and they pulled together a list of projects. And then we worked together with town partners and state folks, as well as a couple of private people, to prioritize that list. So essentially rank it based on, like how much phosphorus reduction is it going to get? Is it viable? Like, is the landowner willing? Is it, something that seems like a good cost for like the benefit that we're putting into it. So we ranked all these projects. We came up with sort of our top few, and then we were able to take those top 3 and make a concept design out of them. So the 3 concept designs that we chose were all in Shelburne. So unfortunately, I don't have any exciting results to show you that say, hey, look at this great design here in Charlotte. But what I do want to talk to you about is some of the projects that were identified here in Charlotte in the McCabe's Brook watershed, because I think some of them might be of interest to the land trust folks and maybe Conservation Commission folks as well. And maybe we can partner together to sort of get some of these projects off the ground. So I'm going to start at essentially the headwaters of McCabe's and move north towards Shelburne. So McCabe's here is in this blue line, sort of running through the center of the screen. You are looking at the Charlotte Community School here, in sort of the yellow shading, I guess, and the orange circle. And you can see here, especially as this blue line goes north, that there are some pretty straight pieces to this McCabe's Brook. It's probably one of these streams that has been straightened historically. So a couple of the projects that were identified were at the Congregational Church and the Charlotte Central School. Both of those were deemed sort of, I guess I would say, not very viable. Well, okay, I take that back. The church concept was originally created several years ago and was not progressed due to wetland sort of problems, if you will, like considerations that made it difficult to do what we wanted to do there based on wetlands that existed. The Charlotte Central School project will be progressing under a separate funding source, which is the Green Schools Initiative. So the engineers will be doing some design work there on the school campus this year. And that will result in projects on the CCS campus that are mandated by state law. So essentially there's no need for us to pursue those projects since they'll be happening under other funding sources and or through the school budgets. Yeah.
What are the pink lines on?
Oh yeah, so the purpley pink lines are the edge of the watershed, edge of the McCabe's Brook. So the corridor here that runs north, I'll take you to the next page because it's all sort of like one large line. So if you can imagine this page then going on north to sort of the end of this page or the center of this page, this corridor has obviously been changed, right? Like it's super straight. You've got a straight line just running down, this stretch here. So allowing that stream to move as it would naturally would be really beneficial. There's also, some stretches like right in here where there's really no buffer at all on the stream. There's no trees or shrubs or anything. So some vegetation planting in those areas, planting some buffers would be great. Some of these areas, so as I start to move north here, are shaded in pink. These are properties that have a VLT easement on them already. So there may be it may make it easier to do work there. Some of these properties further south do not have easements, but that could be a beneficial project to undertake, I guess I would say, if we felt like, that was something wanted to pursue and landowners might be interested in. So as we move north, you can see the stream begins to meander a little more naturally in here, but there are some constraints in the stream. So there's a couple of small dams here and also a ford over the river that's like not in great shape and could stand to be improved. If I'm assuming the farmers need to, cross the stream there. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go.
Is it okay
Yeah,
to ask questions?
absolutely.
Are
Yeah.
the dams still in use or are they like old?
I think they're mostly old. Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't do a lot of like investigation into the exact structures. So some of these came out of like old geomorphic assessments. But I think those are all still intact, all those dams, but yeah, they might be worth checking out and removing. So again, then we, essentially as we're going north here, we end up coming into Shelburne, which I think is actually, I don't see the town line on my map, so it's not gonna be very helpful, but it's somewhere in there, in the center of the map. So, essentially like just looking at these projects, it seems like there's this historic manipulation of the streams that has gone on that probably is contributing to some of the issues downstream. I specifically was interested in inviting the land trust because I think, potentially there's opportunity here to do some easements and other projects to really improve water quality, but I'm not familiar with these folks who own the land here, and would love to open discussion to anyone who's, knowledgeable or would like to, chat about opportunities, I guess, how to move some of these projects forward, because I think they are all, these the floodplain restoration type projects in this area were pretty highly ranked in our prioritization scheme. We just didn't quite get to designing them or taking the next steps. So with that, I will stop sharing and I can take questions. What's that? Oh, yes, I will. Sorry. And I see people on Zoom too. So people on Zoom, you're welcome to type questions into the chat, or maybe you can even unmute and say your question. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but you can give it a try.
We were going to talk about projects that we were going to be working on.
So I was not, because I don't really have, I don't think I have any projects currently that are in the works in Charlotte. Go away.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah, but that's the hope, is that some of these projects will be able to move forward. But we're not there yet. It's going to take some steps, to get to that point where we're ready to either do a design on, on some of these projects. So we have the 3 that we did the concept design for. 2 of them are probably going to be more like town projects that they move forward with if they find the funding for. One of them we may end up doing final design for, but we're not there yet either. Can only juggle so many projects at once, so we have our fingers in a lot of places. So yeah, we're definitely happy to discuss some of these ideas, and if folks have priorities or even just questions about anything that I talked about today, I'm happy to take them.
Can I take something a little off topic?
Sure.
People have thought about beaver activity in promoting slow it and spread it and sink it.
Yeah, beaver activity is great. We love beavers. And I mean, I know in Heinsberg, we're super excited because beavers moved into our Japrags Park, which is, just historically something like this, just like this little tiny stream that wasn't much and probably was straightened and farmed and whatever right up to the edge. And they moved in several years ago, and it's just amazing to see their work, like spreading the water out and allowing that, allowing water to come out onto the floodplain again. And, who knows what that'll look like in, who knows, 10 years when they move on or whatever it is, but it looks great right now. We're super excited about their potential improvements to water quality.
They have a little conflict with the town culvert.
They haven't yet, but there's potential for that. So we did apply for some funding to put in one of the beaver deceivers under, under Shelburne Falls Road, which I don't think we've heard about if we received funding yet. But
Who'd you apply to?
The watershed grants
Oh,
with the
really?
state, so.
Through, who are you through?
It's through Fish and Wildlife, and they're fairly small, like up to 5,000 maybe.
Uh-huh, yeah, well, that would do.
But yeah, so we'll see. They're doing good work there. We'd like to keep them there if we can.
I think Shelburne, did a beaver receiver a couple years ago.
Did they?
And Charlotte has one in our park, or Charlotte
Yeah.
Park and Wildlife Refuge, that
Nice.
just transformed the land, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It brings such a diversity of wildlife
Oh, yeah.
into the land.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of those structure, well, Sue can probably describe it better, but
It's picturing something, but that's not what I.
Well, the design can vary depending on the site. But, Skip Lyle over in Grafton has a company called Beaver Deceiver International. And, depending, so say, beaver block culverts, we can't have that. So he might design a fencing around it. So they can't, a dam in the culvert.
Right, I think they have that like at the, by Ravens Ridge there and that.
Oh, really? Okay.
oh, I
yeah.
bet you're
just
right,
thought
yeah.
I was watching beavers. I was like, I wonder what that is by the culvert, like it's sort of like a mesh type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's okay, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I thought.
The other thing they can do is build pond levelers. So if you don't want the pond to get too high, they put in a pipe that runs under through the dam, so the beaver don't hear the water running, because when beaver hear the water running, that you get to work and hear water running. Fix that, so they can lower the level of the pond, so it doesn't flood, playground or whatever.
Right. Interesting, yeah.
Might have a question maybe in the chat.
Oh,
Unless it's one of them.
it's a good point. Oh, that's Margaret. Thanks,
Okay.
Margaret.
So I was wondering that straight part,
Yeah,
like how, so what's keeping it? Is there something keeping it straight? And how do you make it meander?
that's a good question. I don't know the direct answer because I haven't been out there and
Yeah.
walked it. I mean, my guess is there's probably some little berm here that's, been like, they probably dug out the channel and bermed it up on the side. Over time, it probably, if it wasn't maintained, it would go back to meandering, but it might take a long time.
No.
So, if there's some way to remove the berm or like we did at the floodplain restoration in Heinsberg, create like something in the river. Maybe it's fake beaver dams that raise the level of the stream up so that it can kind of flood out into the field, or putting some logs or rocks or something in, or maybe just sort of lowering the level of the land a bit to create sort of like a little bench next to the stream so it can move out that way.
Yeah, do you think that was kind of common along the edge of a cultivated field? And so instead of having the stream go into your field, they
Right.
would ditch it
Yeah,
and then plow right up to it and
Yeah.
dump it in the ditch.
which is, I mean, I can see that here. It's sort of interesting to me here because this looks like forested. So it's kind of it's an oddity to me, this stretch. It seems like maybe they're not using it for agriculture. So maybe it's, yeah.
You can go pretty fast, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. And this stretch here, there's sort of this mode field. I'm not really sure exactly what that is, but there's no trees or anything next to the stream. So maybe a planting in this area, if landowners were open to that, but all sort of, question marks at this time.
They're a good cheap source of plants to plant along the stream.
I don't know about cheap, but I mean, the intervale is one that we use pretty frequently. This last year, we did a planting in Ferrisburg and we had to order from Coldstream out in Michigan because there just weren't enough plants here in Vermont. So it's kind of a issue I think that folks are investigating and trying to bump up the local plant supply, but lots of tree plantings going on in the state.
So is Fish and Wildlife, or anybody have money for that?
There is money for tree plantings, yeah, for buffer plantings, like they have to be a minimum of 35 feet from the top of the bank, up to about 50 feet. And there are grants available through a variety of sources, but the new clean water service provider, which is the RPC, Chittenden County RPC, is one. And that's a fairly new process, but municipalities can apply, as can watershed groups, to get funding for those types of projects. So pretty much any of the things that we discussed here, there's money for. So.
Have you, gotten together with, or, there's a tremendous amount of reserve land in this area we're talking about. And, have you tried kind of concerted effort to get them together to talk or to present some ideas? There are also some doing some very innovative forward thinking agricultural practices. Really just spread. I think that would be kind of a low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Way to get something going.
Yeah.
Since I think a lot of them would probably be predisposed to doing more innovative things.
Yeah, that's a great idea. No, we haven't had large discussions with these folks. We did talk to VLT a little bit about this northern area, and we are going to do a project just beyond the property north of there near.
Are you familiar with our reserve land map that we do every year in Charlotte?
I have seen it in paper, I think. Yeah.
That would be a good resource for you too.
Okay.
It identifies not only reserve land, but also open space. And so like in Shelburne there, Ridgefield has a tremendous amount of open space all along the frontage, and that butts up to this as well. So
Yes.
their grass cattle company just to the east of this is all conserved land.
Okay.
And Steve does no till ag and so there's that would, as my mother always used to say, you can make a list of things you gotta do a couple of things that you've already done on the list, and you can check them off and
Yeah.
you've got momentum.
Yeah.
But I would think that would be a great resource to start with all of those landowners.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. And yeah, it would be great to see what they're interested in. And but I guess like I mentioned sort of to Sue, it's we have kind of limited capacity as, so it's it is a process. So we're happy to have helpers who can help move a project forward, or talk to landowners, or whatever it is, apply for grants, or manage the process. It's not a super difficult process if you have a good engineering firm, but there's still only so many grants that I can manage at a time. So yeah. Yep. So maybe that's a good next step. Do you guys have that on, is it just come out in paper, or is it on your website or your map?
Put it on our website.
Okay.
And if it's not, then by operation, that's fine.
Perfect.
And we just updated it just very recently.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for coming, and thank you to those of you in Zoom land. And we will talk again soon.